Hey everyone, how's it going? Forrest here, again with another installment of my complete analysis of all of J.S. Bach's chorale harmonizations. Today we're looking at Jesu meine Seelen wohne, which translates to Jesus, delight of my soul. This is a pretty straightforward chorale, a couple of interesting chord progressions here or there, but everything more or less is functionally harmonic, so we're just going to hop right into the analysis. So we have three sharps in the key signature, we start on A major, we end on A major. The overall tonality of this chorale is A major. We then have F sharp, A, and D. That's D major in first inversion, or 4/6. And then we have C sharp, E, G sharp, and E. That's C sharp minor, or our mediant. We don't see 3 all too often. 4/6 going to 3 is kind of like a deceptive progression in a way. We would expect 4/6 to go back to 1 or maybe to 5, but here we have it going to 3, and Bach is going to start a cycle of falling fifths progression. We have a passing tone in the tenor, and then we have F sharp, C sharp, A, and E. That's F sharp minor 7, which is our submediant 7th in root position, and then we have B, D, A, and D. We could call this a B minor 7 chord. That's incomplete without the 5th. However, I think this A is like a 7/6 suspension over the bass, and we often see 2 and 7 paired together in this way. So I think this is actually a G sharp diminished chord over B, with the G sharp being our chord tone rather than our A, making this a 7/6 chord. And 6 goes to 7 pretty often. It can go to 2, it can go to 7. You could even call this a 2/7 progression. 2/2/7, that is, not 2/7 like I analyzed E, or 2 then 7. I think all analyses are correct. I just hear this more as 6 going to 7 as the broader chord progression that's being implied here. And then we have C sharp, E, A, and C sharp. We would expect this to go to a tonic triad in first inversion. We also have a passing tone in the bass to prepare us for our half cadence, E, E, G sharp, and B, which is our 5 chord, and that is reiterated here, E, E, G sharp, and B. This is one of the hallmarks of this particular melody, which I believe is Vermunte mein Gemüte, which is a melody that Bach uses quite frequently in the chorales. It has this double, or this repeated redundant tone here, and he uses that as a cadential profile and makes it unique. And then following our first phrase is a phrase that concludes with a perfect authentic cadence in the key of A major, no modulations here. We have A, E, A, and C sharp, which is our tonic A major, passing 7th in the bass before we get F sharp, A, and D. That's D major in first inversion. Then we have G sharp, B, and E. That's E major in first inversion, so 5/6. It's kind of where we would have expected this original 4/6 chord to go, but instead it went to 3 in the first phrase here. It's following more of a normative chordal scheme. And then we have A, C sharp, A, and C sharp. Kind of an interesting spelling when we get these double root, double third triads, but we see them with some regularity. This is a tonic triad, A major, with a passing tone in the tenor. Then we have E, E, A, and B. This A is a 4/3 suspension over the bass, but we know that 5 is being implied. This B is a chord tone, so we don't need to mark it. We then get E, E, G sharp, and B, which is the resolution of the suspension from the previous beat, passing 7th in the tenor, and then we cadence on A major, A, C sharp, E, and A. Alright, going into the B section, we have a phrase that concludes in a perfect authentic cadence in the key of B minor. We start off with an E major chord, which is kind of interesting. So when we hear this E major chord, we really don't have any reason to believe that we're moving to the key of B major until we hear the A sharp on the next beat. So I do think this is our pivot chord, and it is our major subdominant. We do know that Bach likes to use the major 4 chord to modulate to various minor keys. In this case, he's modulating to the key of the supertonic. And following this 4 chord, looks like kind of an uppercase 2 the way I wrote it. Hopefully it looks more like a V now rather than another I. And then we have D, E, A sharp, and C sharp. This D is an accented non-chord tone. It's really C sharp, E, A sharp, and C sharp, which is A sharp diminished over C sharp. That's 7/6. which is one of the likely places we would expect 4 to go to. And then we get B minor afterwards, B, F sharp, B, and D, which is our tonic triad now that we're in B minor. We have a passing tone in the bass as well before we get D, F sharp, B, and D. Bach just takes the next beat to invert the previous B minor triad. Now it's in first inversion, and we get another passing tone in the bass before we get F sharp, B, and C sharp, seeing a similar pattern from the previous cadence as well, basically in just sequencing his way up the A major scale. We go from A major to B major, and we're going to see a similar thing happen in the next phrase, but instead of going to C sharp minor, we're going to go to a different key, because C sharp minor would be C sharp minor would be distant from B minor, but near A major, so it's interesting that we went to B minor here. Regardless, we have F sharp, B, and C sharp here. That's another 4-3 suspension in the alto above the bass. This C sharp is a chord tone, then we get the resolution to this 5 chord F sharp major on the next beat with a passing 7th. Then we cadence on B minor, B, D, F sharp, and B, which is our tonic triad. Then we get a complement to this phrase, to the previous phrase and the phrase before that, with a perfect authentic cadence in the key of D major, so the relative major to B minor and a nearby key to A major, in the interest of modulating back to the key of A, I would imagine. So we start things off with a B minor triad, B, D, F sharp, and D, which is our tonic triad, but also in the key of D major, our 6th chord, before we go to A, C sharp, A, and E, which is A major, not our tonic, because we're in the key of D, but rather our 5 chord. And we know we're in the key of D because we've moved from B minor because we have A naturals for an extended period of time, and we also have G naturals. Then we have F sharp, D, A, and F sharp, which is D major over F sharp. That's our tonic triad, D major in first inversion, with a passing tone in the bass. And then we get D, D, A, and F sharp, which is taking that D major triad and putting it in root position. So we have 1-6 going to 5-3. We then have A, D, A, and E. The suspended voice is being shifted from the alto to the tenor here, but still the same general gesture applies. We have a 4-3 suspension over the bass. We know a 5 chord is being implied here, and that resolution happens on beat 2, A, C sharp, A, and E, which is A major. Passing 7th on the alto this time, and then we cadence on D major like we would expect, D, A, F sharp, and D, which is our tonic triad. Alright, our penultimate phrase concludes in a half cadence in the key of A major, and we could say that we've modulated. This is kind of like a modulation zone. I think you could say that we've modulated on the cadence. You can say that we've modulated on the first beat of the cadence. I think that we've modulated on the first beat of the cadence. The same reason why I'm saying that the beginning of the B section, we have no reason to think that we've modulated because we have a 5 chord and we would likely expect that to go to 1. Is the same reason why I'm going to say that this A major chord is also a 5 chord in the key of D, A, E, and C sharp, which is another A major chord, passing tone in the bass, passing tone in the tenor. But the reason why I think this is where we modulate is because instead of G natural like we have in the key of D major, we have G sharps here in the key of A major, so I think that this A major chord is also functioning like our tonic A major rather than our 5 chord, and then saying this resolution to D major on the next beat is still in the key of D major. However, if you still hear it in the key of D major and hear this as a 5-to-1 progression, that's entirely valid as well. But I think this is like the last point that you can make the argument that we've modulated, because once we go beyond this D major chord, we're dealing with chords that are no longer diatonic to the key of D major. So this D major chord, I'm saying that it's a 4 chord in first inversion, F sharp, A, and D, 4-6. And then we have G sharp, B, E, and E with a passing tone in the alto. That is E major in first inversion, or 5-6. We've seen this progression before or at the beginning of the second phrase. Then we have C sharp, E, G sharp, and E. The C sharp minor chord is making a comeback like we had at the beginning of the first phrase. This is a 3 chord, definitely a deceptive progression. We would expect 5 to go to 1, and here we have the 5 completely skip the tonic and go straight to the mediant. The chords are similar to one another. They're only separated by G sharp versus A, but still the bass moving up a fourth rather than by a half step is definitely on the deceptive side. And then we have F sharp, A, and D, which is D major in first inversion again. 4/6 is really just a substitute for 6 like we have right here. And then we have a passing seventh in the, or sorry, not a passing, it is a passing 7 in the bass, but rather not a passing seventh. A passing seventh in the bass would be E, C sharp, because this is a D major chord. But this passing leading tone is often, we pretty much always get it when we're going from 4/6 to 1, A, E, A, and C sharp. Sometimes we even get a fully voiced 7 or 5 chord. But when we connect 4/6 to 1 ascending, that leading tone is always there, or at least it's always been there in the chorales that I've looked at. It's true up until this point, and I've pretty much looked at the chorales in order of the BWV numbers, so there is some consistency there. And then we cadence on E, G sharp, and B, which is our 5 chord, just like the first cadence that we have. So we have this, as far as the cadential structure is concerned, a little bit of a bit of a rounded binary form here. And then we have A, E, A, and C sharp. That's A major in root position. 5 goes where we would expect. And before I go on, we end in a perfect authentic cadence like we would expect a chorale to. Then we skip down to F sharp here, which kind of turns this into an F sharp minor 7 chord. And I think that that's worth marking because Bach seldom does that in the bass. And I don't really know why he did that this time. It could just be because he felt the need to go to D major afterwards. There really are lots of different reasons as to why that could be the configuration that he went for. But here it is. This has been around for a very long time, so I'm only one to speculate. Here we have E, F sharp, A, and D. This E is an accented non-chord tone. This is a D major triad in root position, which is 4. And then we have C sharp, E, A, and E, which is our tonic triad, A major in first inversion. Then we have a couple of non-chord tones here. We have a passing tone in the melody and bass, and we also have a neighbor tone in the alto. That's B, E, G sharp, and D. And I'm going to analyze this chord. When 3 or 4 of the voices are moving off the harmonic rhythm, I tend to think that there is something afoot. There's probably a subdivision of the harmonic rhythm going on here. Not always, but I'd say the majority of the time, even if it's like 60% the majority of the time. And every time when 4 voices move, it's virtually always a subdivision of the harmonic rhythm. Not always, but virtually always. In this case, this is E7 over B, which is a 5/4-3 chord, and that connects 1/6 to A, E, A, and C sharp. Typically, we would see a 7 chord in this situation, like a G sharp diminished triad in first inversion rather than E. However, we have E here rather than D, which is the chord tone that we would expect. And then we have E, E, A, and B, which is another harkening back to the end of the second phrase, where we have this 4/3 suspension in the alto, like we did in several phrases here. So he uses a very similar structure for the forms of 4 of the 6 phrases in this chorale, but we know that an E major triad is being implied even though we have an A here in the alto. This B is a chord tone, so we don't need to mark it. We get the resolution on beat 2, E, E, G sharp, and B, with the passing 7th in the tenor, and then we cadence on A major, A, C sharp, E, and A, which is our tonic triad in root position. And that concludes our analysis for today. This is a pretty straightforward chorale. It's a very well-rounded chorale. We pretty much get the entire gamut of chords diatonic to the key. I think we get at least each chord twice. We get some 6s, we get some 3s as well. A lot of the times we get a lot of 1s, 4s, and 5s, which is the sort of staple foundation for most tonal music. But when we get harmonizations of chords outside of the key, it's always fascinating to look at to see how Bach varies the chord progression, because he is utilizing the same melodies with different texts dozens and dozens of times, or in some cases dozens and dozens of times, but in this case this is one of the more common melodies. We have seen this melody in the past, and we've looked at a little less than half of the chorales now. So when we see reharmonizations of the same melody, it's interesting to see how he treats the chords, and I think this is one of the more tame representations of what this melody could be. But that being said, that's the analysis for today. If you're interested in following me along on this journey to analyze all the chorales, feel free to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification icon. I upload once a day, so you'll be notified of when that video goes live. Hundreds of videos are scheduled for the future, so I'd be more than happy to have you along for the ride. But on that note, thank you so much for watching the video. Thank you so much for supporting the channel by doing so. I look forward to tomorrow's analysis, and I hope you take care.